Hello learners, in the last session we have learned about permissions and now let's try to work upon live previews wherein I'm going to talk about how you can display the preview according to the phone aspect ratio and also you can set up the resolution. All this thing we're going to try and do with the help of few guidelines that I'm going to list it down in the video. In order to understand, watch through the video and you will be able to get how to display live previews into your app. Let's get started. Let's begin with our session by integrating our camera plugin. So here I am making a blueprint of what is going to be there into our session. I'm going to discuss about the camera plugin. What's a camera plugin? Exactly like permission handler, the camera plugin will help you to integrate the camera into your app. Secondly, I'm going to write down your guidelines, or you can see steps that you need to follow to integrate this camera plugin. Followed by third, we are going to discuss about aspect ratio. Now, when it comes to aspect ratio, you must have seen that when it comes to your mobile or your monitor, they don't come in any random size. Let's see some aspect ratio images on Google. Let's talk about this particular image. It says 16:9. Well, this is when you have your phone, your TV that's going to be in landscape mode. Same when it translates to portrait becomes 9:16. 3:2 is, let's say, when you have point of sale devices, like when you go to a railway ticket counter, you have ATVM machines, automatic ticket vending machines, that give you the ticket. That's kind of pixelated, but you can still operate on it. That's a 3:2 device. Followed by 18:6. That's your friends who have ultra wide screen monitor, or probably even you if you are kind of an ultra rich guy. Well, you have that kind of a dimension in which the width of the entire screen is way much more longer compared to the height of the screen. In that case, you'll be having this kind of 18:6 aspect ratio. Now, when it comes to cameras, it's highly relevant. That's because the image aspect ratio decides the quality of your output for the camera. When we are talking about our camera, this aspect ratio we shall be incorporating into place. That too, along with the device that the specifications you have the best camera aspect ratio that your device could be giving, we're going to pick that up. What I'm going to begin my code with is adding the camera plugin into my pubsec.yaml file. So if you would notice, over here I already have done it. That's because once I add the plugin, I have to do two steps: clean the project, do the pub-get, and then run my app. Now, once you're trying to do these steps, your code from the pubdev gets downloaded on your local machine and then your app runs. Coming to the camera screen, when it comes to recording videos, or be it just shooting images, let's say you're moving your device from here to here, don't you see, or don't you want to have that app which continuously updates the screen? Surely in the case of a camera. Hence, the very first implementation for the camera screen is going to make the screen to have an update. That's the reason why I'm going to have camera screen to extend the stateful widget and then make this as camera screen state. Let's remove this less widget to have the camera screen. I'm going to write the override function return camera screen state. Now, we know the purpose of what goes behind a stateful widget lifecycle. But this time, when we are trying to write down the code for cameras, I'm going to write down even the guidelines. Let's begin with step number 1, wherein I'm going to do the initialization. Step number 2, in which I'm going to do the configuration, and step number 3 is where we want to reach, clicking photos. Coming to the initialization step, let's try having some variables. For example, the list of cameras that would be there in your device. Next would be the camera controller. So what's a camera controller? Exactly like for your input, there is text editing controller. You'll notice when it comes to plugins, there are going to be a lot of controllers. In fact, camera controller is one of the controllers that are very frequently used when it comes to your Flutter app. Followed by, I'm going to have an integer variable, and just notice the name of it, selected camera ID. Well, when it comes to cameras, we know it's going to be the front camera and the back camera. Well, this definition defies if you have a friend who is an avid Instagrammer or an avid TikToker. That's because he's going to have an external camera that's going to be purchased from any Amazon or Flipkart kind of a website, and he's going to record his super high quality videos on his mobile to put it on the Instagram. In that case, we will be having a lot many cameras that can be integrated into your device. Well, yes, you can actually make your device sounding like a DSLR, but in our case, we are going to have two things only. One, wherein if this variable is going to be 1, then the device front camera shall be displayed, which on a vice versa means if it's 0, then the device back camera shall be displayed. In our case, we are going to restrict our conversation to normal people only. Step number 1, the initialization. What I'm going to do is write a future function, initialize camera. The number one reason of making this as a future function is, over here, as we were very sure that this future for permission works well, I'm going to pick this code up and put it here. Do you notice? Here is the await keyword, and like I communicated to you in the last session, every await requires the function to be async. Hence, we are going to make this initialization as async. More upon, if we have the permission, then I'm going to look for available cameras. Well, the camera plugin is actually quite a good. You can get all the device cameras into your app. Then what do? We are going to get a camera description list, which lets us know total number of cameras. I would want your attention to be on this dot then. For example, after watching this video, I'm going to go and have snacks. What you're trying to do is complete a task, then do something. exactly in that sequence, once we have the cameras available, I'm going to save them into my variable cameras list, and that's exactly the reason repeat and that's exactly the reason why I'm trying to do dot then, because at this particular step I will have the actual number of cameras that the device would be having. Now let's go to step number 2, wherein yet another future function to configure my camera description. Now, what do you mean by configure? Well, let's try having a camera controller. The camera controller is presently null. So what I'm going to do is, this camera controller, I'm going to initialize and then set the resolution. Well, I can have numerous combinations and I'll pick very high. Next, to this camera controller, I would wait until the hardware is initialized. So what's exactly this line doing? This line is responsible for your device to start up the camera. Let's say I have a very old device. The camera in my device is kind of wrecked up and it takes 3 seconds to 5 seconds to actually load. What do I have to do is wait until the camera initialization is complete. That's exactly this hardware initialization which I'm referring to. Next is my camera controller, wherein I would add a listener. So what's exactly a listener? Do you remember this step? Moving from here to here and the listening for the continuous screen update. That's exactly this listener for, wherein once it is done, I'll try and do a set state. Now I'll call the step number 2 once I have the list of cameras, and I'll mark this function to be async again. Why? That's because over here I can use this await keyword, and I think I have made a simple syntax mistake of not wrapping it up in one more bracket and having this as a round bracket followed by the closing curly brace. I still think I have made a mess of it, and let me remove this value put a value here. Well, okay, so what I'm going to do is put the await keyword and configure my camera description. Now over here I'm going to have the cameras list. So presently I want to configure along with my back camera. That's because over here, if you remember, I had kept the selected camera ID to be 0. Now this becomes kind of easy. Let's say if you're trying to switch between the front camera and the back camera, then you just have to ensure that this variable turns the value to 1, and that's exactly how you can make the new camera to get initialized. I'm going to talk about it when we actually are trying to do the switching between the camera. Now, since step number 2 is being called by step number 1, let's try heading over to init state. So if you would remember, this is the place where initialization for the controllers happen, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to initialize the camera over here. The last step will be in my device, I would want the camera to be displayed on the entire screen, from the topmost to the bottommost corner. So what I'll try and do is this widget, which was actually for the testing purpose, I'm going to remove the button and keep the widget preview camera output. Now preview camera output, if my camera controller is not null and my camera controller is initialized, then I'm going to display the camera preview. But this time, if you would remember, at the beginning of our session, I was talking about the device aspect ratio. So look over here, the camera controller, as we are doing this dot initialize, now will have the aspect ratio for that particular device, and hence it's going to display the output for camera using my camera controller. If that particular thing does not happen, then at the center of the screen I shall be displaying a text as camera is loading. Now let me call this preview camera output widget function from my center. So this is going to display the camera output at the center. I'm going to run my app and wait for the APK to get generated. As I see the APK been installed, heading over to my device, well, that's actually the camera output. In fact, I can move my fingers around it and you can see the preview of it. But well, it does not span on the entire screen. That's because now instead of we having the center widget, I'm going to put something called as a stack. The stack will have a children in which, using stack, I have the provision to use positioned. Did you notice dot fill, which basically means to fill the entire screen with that particular output, and over here I'm going to fill with my camera output. Hence now once I do a hot reload, you'll notice the entire screen is actually displaying my camera, and in fact if I remove the app bar from the topmost to the bottommost pixel, including my camera part, including where my time is being mentioned, that's actually displaying the camera output. Now what I'm going to do is change the variable value to 1 and run my app to check if it actually shows the front camera as well. Camera is loading, and then you can see me on my phone wherein it's showing the front camera. Well, what do we understand is keeping this variable as 0 and 1 makes our camera control to be very handy, especially on the development front. Now, over here I introduced you to the stack widget, but what's exactly a stack? Let's head over to this diagram. We're going to stack this. For example, where the camera is being placed, on top of it there will be an icon. This blue color icon, once you click on it, will be shooting your image, followed by a switch icon, let's say a sync icon, wherein we have this arrow, like a front arrow and a back arrow. If you click on this, then you'll be able to switch between front and back camera. And finally, my video button, let's say this is the video button, and if you tap on it, then the video button actually starts recording the video. In that case, do you notice this icons which are superimposed on the camera screen? It's kind of one thing stacked about another, and hence that's the stack widget. We're going to catch up on this stack widget in more detail in the next session. Well, that was fantastic. That's because now you know what's a preview. In the next session, I'm going to take your knowledge one step further, wherein I'm going to make sure your photography skills into mobile get enhanced, because you can click more clearer photos by your own Flutter app. That's exactly where I'm going to show to you how you can have shooting for the images, and also a preview screen where you can take a confirmation from the user in order to save it into the device. Well, for this, you need to stay tuned and keep learning with Hoping Minds.